what a joy to be here with you today. And I always look forward to coming to California. I suppose the main reason is the in and out hamburger shop. I honestly believe that's the best thing happened for California. We have emailed them a whole bunch of times asking them to come to Dallas, Texas, and threatened them, and now they are willing to think about it, I heard. Pastor Tim was very gracious and kind to take us to In-N-Out Burger Place last night, and really it happened. May the Lord bless him. John Beers, my colleague and co-worker, we left Dallas yesterday to be here. And of course, before coming to States, day for us today, as a matter of fact, I landed here. Before that, I was in New Zealand and Australia for 2 weeks of intense travel. And during a prayer meeting, I was sharing about Nepal, what God is doing there, a Hindu nation. On the law, still they have this. If you baptize a Hindu, the punishment is 6 years imprisonment. And many of our missionaries suffered a whole lot. Right now we have one in prison for many, many years. And the country went through a huge revolution. As you know, the king and the entire family got butchered, and then of course things changed. Now the red-hot communist, Maoist became a huge threat to the country. The new king resigned and stepped down, and they declared the country is going to be a secular government, and they rewrite the constitution. And I told the people in New Zealand, our office there and the staff, we need to be really praying that God will intervene, that they will change the law on the book. Meanwhile, from India, the Hindu radical fundamentalists are going to Nepal, trying to persuade the lawmakers to make it more tougher for Christian work in Nepal. And we've been working there for years. Think about it, in the midst of huge persecution problems, we have over 200 churches planted among the most unreached. And one of the key is that since the Maoists began to cause so much trouble for the government and the king, they left us alone. And our missionaries had more freedom to preach the gospel. And then the huge miracle I was telling during the prayer meeting time is that we are able to broadcast the gospel on 16 FM radio stations. Now think about it, that belong to the government. I mean, in India, with 1.2 billion people, so far we don't have the freedom to air the gospel over the radio. They won't allow us. So we are airing the gospel from outside of India and these nations in 92 languages. And over 1 million people write to us a year asking for more information about the Lord. So I was so excited about what's going on in Nepal, and then we are going to add more radio stations if they're willing to let us do. It was so wonderful. And I said, now we're going to divide into small groups and we're going to pray. And then I stepped down. I missed one step. And I just fell down and twisted my ankle, and the whole church could hear the sound. It was horrible pain. But the Lord was gracious, and I survived with wheelchairs and all those things. And I didn't want to cancel coming here. And tonight I'll be back in Dallas, and tomorrow catching another flight to Sri Lanka and India for a week before coming back to go to Florida. Of course, our U.S. headquarters for our mission is in Dallas, Texas. Some 120 people work behind the scene, like John Beers, he's in leadership. And my wife is in Dallas at the time. That's where our home. My 2 children born in Dallas, by the way, and finished their studies here. And the Lord called them to leave America, and they are on the mission field for the last 10 years. And what a blessing it is. And somebody asked me, where is my home? I said, the suitcase. you know, because kids are gone, so my wife also travels, a little bit here and there with us. You know what? Gisela and I, that's her name. We talked about this. We miss each other quite a bit. But we made a calculated decision. As Emmy Carmichael said, we have moments, only few seconds to work, but eternity to rejoice. And it's a calculated decision. And I told my wife, if you feel this is too much what we are doing, please let me know. But she's more crazy than I am. But I tell you something. When you recognize the time is so brief, and then, in 1974 I came to America, to Dallas, to go to seminary, and within a few years' time, I was becoming like an American. That means when I first came to America, I thought hot dog was dog meat. Literally. I wouldn't touch it. But then I learned my lessons well. And in a few years' time, library to my name and thousands of books I may never read, but look wonderful. 70 neckties, all from Europe, because I spent some time there. And then, clothes I bought from most expensive places, which is not a bad thing, by the way. But it took me about half hour to get dressed often because I read a book, Color Me Beautiful. Some of you men, look, you are lost. Ask your wife. Indian, from the streets of India, 8 years of weeping over the lost and perishing millions. Seen the poverty and the struggle having come to this nation. Materialism began to kill me. I was in seminary, pastoring a church, spoke the right language, but all of a sudden I found my eyes were dry. I couldn't cry anymore. My heart was cold. I was deep into theology and preaching and teaching. And then I realized I'm no more becoming like Christ. I'm becoming what I want to be. And that's when I prayed nearly 30 years ago, kneeling down in my study and said, Lord, my heart is gone. I don't know what to do. Would you take eternity and stamp on my eyes? And that was before Gospel for Asia. My brothers and sisters, I'm here with you knowing this is one of the finest church with some of the most godly leadership and a teaching pastor. Why should I pretend to be here to teach or preach? Because you have it all. And the truth of the matter is, the Lord allowed me to come here with the kindness of the leadership to share with you some practical things that should help us to understand ways of the Lord. What we don't understand, you can see all the pictures in the world, you can hear all the stories in the world, read all the books in the world, and be brainwashed with information about the lost world, such as 2 billion people still wait to hear the name Jesus. 80,000 people die every single day and plunge into hell and forever. And all this stuff you can hear. But you will continue to live your life the same way and spend your money the same way. And for the sake of soothing your guilty conscience, maybe you may give you money or go to Mexico or different things. But that is not the way Christ is. The way Christ is, when he saw the multitude, he was broken up with such pain. In John's Gospel chapter 4, he lost his very appetite by the confrontation he had with one woman that is lost without the Father. And that woman's life became the window for him to see the multitudes that are perishing. And then he cries out, saying, lift up your eyes, disciples, and see what I see. Because they are worried about hamburger and french fries and food and all kind of stuff. They are worried about eating their food. They are worried about Christ eating his food. But he said, I lost my appetite. Think about it. When was the last time your wife or your husband or your children said to you, what happened to you? You're not hungry? You're not eating? I mean, you've been missing meal so many times. Something wrong? then you will respond. Well, the truth of the matter is, remember a few days ago we were watching what happened in Bangladesh. 100,000 people died overnight, and thousands of kids on the streets, and millions displaced, and it just breaks my heart. I made a decision to fast for 3-4 days and pray for these people and experience the pain Christ experienced for the lost and dying millions. Please, for kindness sake, understand me. I am not here to get anything from you or put you on any kind of guilt trip. We have come to the place in church that obedience has come to the place of being misunderstood as legalism. But Jesus said, unless you love me more than father, son, daughter, even your own very life, you cannot be mine. These are verses we don't want to talk about maybe. I didn't want to talk about it. But when the Lord dealt with my heart, I realized he was asking me for surgery with anesthesia. He said, you raise the dragon, you better slay it. I won't force you. You can choose. And I tell you, it was not easy. My brothers and sisters, what the Lord did in my own, this brief walk, I remember sitting in my study, writing some note with my Mont Blanc, a pen that, who wants to spend $350 for a stupid little fountain pen? Because I was in Germany, that was my great joy, because I always loved fountain pen. I remember writing with this thing something, and the Lord just spoke to my heart and said, son, 100 years from now, who's going to use this pen? I said, what? I just asked you a question. Then he let me think about everything I was living for. And I added 100 years of my age and found out I'm dead. I'm gone. Nothing I take with me. It just scared me to death. And I realized I better commit my life and every fiber of my being so radical that nothing in the world should hold me back from giving all to him and loving him and living for the cause. And I won't recommend you to sell your house and car and wife and kids and all those stuff. I'm not promoting any of that stuff. But this is what I'm telling you. We got a problem of information becoming godliness. Information will never make you godly. As a matter of fact, I tell you what, Christ died on the cross not to forgive our sin alone and take us to heaven, but to set us free from our own self-centeredness, because only then we can see Christ using our earthen vessels to change this lost world. And I so bad wanted to do my own way things for God. And the Lord said to me, listen, why don't you become a servant, a slave? So that instead of you just go into some mission field on your own, trying to do something, let your life become the reason for thousands of my servants go to the mission field. It was a whole new revelation, new understanding. You say, what are you talking about? You see, countries like India, with over 1 billion people, they will not allow Americans to come or Europeans to be missionaries there to preach, baptize, and plant churches. As a matter of fact, the 1040 window region, restricted, mostly closed. We take people overseas, by the way. We do. We challenge them to do that for a few months or whatever. But I'm talking about, how do you reach half of the country that never heard the name Jesus? I remember the early days, we go from village to village and ask people if they heard the name Jesus. The most common answer, very polite, nice people, they scratch their head and say, I've been living here for 20, 30, 40 years. No one by that name live here. You go to the next village, you may find him there. Literally. This is actually true. And how do you reach these people? This is where the Lord began to show us the very beginning of Gospel for Asia, that the body of Christ here, we can link our lives with brothers and sisters on the mission field. Indians and Nepalis and Bhutanese and Burmese and Thailand people and Chinese, and pray for them and help them to get the job done. As a matter of fact, today we have 16,000 full-time, well-trained missionaries on the field. Over these years, we have seen 24,000 churches planted among people that didn't have a church before. Every day, close to 60 new fellowships, churches born on the mission field. You say, that's unbelievable. You better believe it. You want to go with me? Please, we'll buy ticket and go. And you would be surprised to see what God is doing. Such as this man wrote from Nepal, listened to a radio broadcast. Sir, I hear if I believe in your Jesus, my sins can be forgiven. Then can we all join you? 12 people signed their name under that. A missionary was sent, a beautiful church now in the community. From the end of Bhutan, a place that is not even on the map. Literally, we looked for it. This guy wrote, I heard about Jesus over the radio, and I was laying on my mat in my hut. I was paralyzed for years. I prayed to Jesus. I don't know what happened. I got up. This book you talk about, I don't know what this is. Can you give me a book? 2 missionaries walked 7 days to get to the community. Now there's a church. We can't build churches in Bhutan, but house we build, and inside the worship. This is unbelievable what is happening today. Did you know in India, nearly 300 million people of the population, the untouchables, the Dalits, you ever heard about them? The worst slavery in human history. It is not what was in America or England. It is in India. 162 million child laborers, little kids, 4, 5, 6-year-old kids starting to work from morning till night, making 8, 9 cents for the whole day's labor. Do you have kids? I have 2. Think about your little boy and girl, half naked, working to make a few cents. You know who are these kids? The children of the untouchables. You see, what is it that I'm so consumed about my children, their welfare, their health and wealth and education? Is God so partial that He has no feeling for 100,000 children wandering on the streets of Bombay, not knowing who their parents are? He cares. He weeps. But the problem is not His. The problem is mine, that I cannot become like Him because I'm consumed with my own affair, even in spiritual things. And I remember the Lord speaking in my heart, son, 7 expensive leather-bound Bibles sitting on your shelf when half of the world have never seen one page of the Bible. What is it all about? And I began to weep. Is this not the radical Christianity Jesus called us for? And I tell you, mission field, literally thousands are coming to Christ almost every hour, but there's a price paid. You go to the website and simply take some time. Don't look for your movies to rent. Look at the websites like gfa.org or any and see every day thousands are butchered, murdered for the sake of Christ in many nations. There's not a week go by I don't hear about 10, 12 of our missionaries beaten, abused, bones broken. One of our missionaries who baptized over 100 people. Early morning, he was going on his bicycle to ministry. A group of men caught them in Bihar. You know what they did? They stripped him naked and took a razor blade, went all over his body, left him to die on the roadside. 2 missionaries went in northeast to work among the Muslims. They won 18 or 19 people to the Lord baptized. And one morning these 2 brothers were going about their evangelism ministry when they met a group of men, and the leader of the gang stepped forward, took a long dagger, stabbed in the heart of Hussein, and he fell in a pool of blood, leaving his wife and 2 kids behind. And Salsal, his co-worker, they stabbed him 6 times. He recovered after many months. You know, my sisters, listen to this. This young wife, the wife of this missionary who was murdered, she's a Muslim convert. Her parents are not Christians. She was alone with her husband and 2 kids in a strange mission field. Hearing about the news about her husband being murdered, her father came from a distant village and said, my daughter, thank God the devil is dead. Now you come home with me with my grandchildren. Now, the answer this young girl gave, my father, I can't. I love these people. I love Jesus. I will raise my children to take the place of my husband, and they must serve the Lord. And that shocked this father who is a Muslim. In 2 weeks' time, she led him to the Lord Jesus Christ, and he was baptized. Hallelujah. here is the thing. I can tell you all the events and stories that's going on, unbelievable. But please understand, it is not because some magical powers or some super brains. It is because behind it are individuals who made a choice. My life is not my own, it is His. And that's what it's all about. However that interpreted in your personal life, if you do that, I tell you, when we stand before the Lord, it is not going to be just you and me and our little families, but millions that no man can number, multitudes, and we'll dance forever. And I tell you, that is what our destiny is. And I pray that this earth, the things of the world and friendships and whatever else, the pull of the flesh will not stop us from going forward to take the world with us to heaven. Whether we go or stay, whatever, let us be radicals. Now, for me, when the Lord told us to do this, one of the greatest joy was saying, Lord, I will do that. Little did I know when I made that surrender that what it meant was I was linking my life with brothers and sisters that the Lord will use to see so many come to know the Lord. One of the mission field I was in early days of my life with Operation Mobilization is in Punjab. People who wear this turban thing. And we have a Bible college there. We have 54 Bible colleges with over 7,000 students in all these 10 countries, by the way. We graduate over 2,000. These are not Americans. These are people from their own countries who go to the unreached people groups in their country or the near country, whatever. It's unbelievable. And this one young man went to the place, this particular mission field, so difficult. Usually they fast and pray for God to go before them, because you're dealing with huge amount of demon-possessed people and sick people and opposition and all that. This dear brother was going about ministering, and one day he saw this family sitting so sad and gloomy, like somebody died in their home. And he said, what happened? They said, well, our buffalo, we milk the buffalo and sell the milk and make a living, but our buffalo is dying. We don't know what to do. Then he looked over and saw the animal there. And he said, well, I'll pray to Jesus for your buffalo. And he quietly said, Lord, this is the only chance. Please do something about it. And he laid a hand on his dying buffalo, and he prayed. Before he could finish the prayer, that buffalo jumped up. And it shocked the family. He ended up giving all their lives to the Lord. More people came to the Lord, and he baptized over a period of many months of over 120, 140 people, and the church was built. First church in the community. So that we will not forget what God did, we named the church the Buffalo Church. It's a cool idea. How do we translate all this? You know, there are several things I would recommend to you. One, we all pray. But did you know there's a study being released about our country, Christians in America. Average believer pray less than 8 minutes a day. And ministers pray less than 12 minutes a day. I'm not talking about this church, obviously. But I just ask you, when was the last time you spent an hour or two with the Lord? When was the last time the burden He shared with you because of intimacy with Him, so much you called into the workplace and said, I can't come home today. I am sick. They said, you're sick? Well, I can tell you, I just can't work. I'm sick. You are sick and broken up like Christ when He walked on earth. Now you are His. But you will never, never, never know this with all the theology and preaching and consultations and counsels unless you be His, to be with Him. Let Him tell you His burdens. My recommendation to you, which I make to our people everywhere, make one day of the week for fasting and prayer and get a world map. What do you mean world map? There it is. Become a world Christian, someone said, not a worldly Christian. When my kids were growing up in Dallas, we had the world map by our dining table, and every day we looked at this, talked about different countries and prayed for the different countries. We called Operation World Book. You know what the kids did? We never told them go to the mission field. But when they finished their studies, they ran off. One to Nepal, one to India. And they never want to come back. You know what happened? They understood the heart of God. I'm not saying you have to run off to some country, but prayer. You say, what am I going to pray for? Go to our website. We can bury you with prayer requests. You wouldn't believe it. Fantastic exercise. And just fasting one day of the week, you will not die. If you die, please let me know. Second application. For me, everything in me died. I couldn't touch godliness anymore while I was in the ministry because of materialism. And the Lord had to set me free. That means different thing to different people. I have friends who are multi-millionaires who are intense in their walk with God, touching the lost world. But there are poor people who got nothing but greedy like the devil. I'm not promoting selling your stuff and house and cars. That's not what I'm saying. But when half of the world go to bed with empty stomach and naked bodies, let's not fool ourselves and be superficial about it. How many more clothes you need to make you look nice? How many more diamond rings you need to prove His love for you? How many more new cars and trinkets we need to make us happy? Listen, find happiness in suffering that you accept in the flesh. Why I say it? I still fight this battle. It is not over. Invest your life for things that will not perish. But please don't do it out of guilt or condemnation or need or whatever. You seek the Lord. Don't be careless about it. The next recommendation I have, the third one, if the Lord is calling you to serve Him, listen, take the risk. You will never be abandoned by Him. Okay, get a one-way ticket. You die, don't worry, heaven is a much better place than, this is what we tell our missionaries when they go to the mission field, by the way. If you get killed on the mission field, you wait there for us and we'll come and see you later. Exactly, we tell them this because the persecution is so severe in many places. Now, you may not be able to go to India or these nations and live there, but you can serve God in all kinds of ways. I mean, we are even looking for people to work with us in Dallas, Texas. Skilled, unskilled, anyone who want to serve God, we will talk to you. We need people in Canada, we need people in Australia, in New Zealand, all kind of places. And we are looking for people with skills like television and all these. We are trying to launch a television channel in the next 2 months. We need people to come and help us. People who can work with cameras and editing and all. These are skills we cannot find in these places. And if you are one that got any kind of skill in these kind of areas, media, please talk to us. We'll buy a one-way ticket and throw your passport away. And we'll take care of you. Please don't worry about that. And then it will be a rejoicing, wonderful thing. And a fellowship like this, what a place for people to pray and help you. As a matter of fact, we are so happy. We have a couple from this church that is going to be joining us this year. And please, I think it's Jonathan, his name, and please pray for the family. The last recommendation I have for you is that, my first choice was not to be in America or anywhere. I just wanted to go to India or Nepal somewhere. That's when the Lord said, listen, do this and you can do more. And that's when Gospel of Asia began. There is a card given to you in the bulletin. Would you please pull it out? And it is right there with you in the bulletin. And be kind enough to look at this. If you want to read it on the screen, you can also. What it is, simply this. As I told you, we have thousands of brothers and sisters in all these nations who speak the language, live like their people, with a passion, burden for Jesus. But they come from terribly poor backgrounds. And this is where we can become Romans chapter 10 fulfillers. That is, how will they go to preach except they be sent? What I'm asking you, would you pray and ask the Lord, He'll give you the grace to help some of these native missionaries in Nepal, India, Bhutan, any of those countries. As a matter of fact, you're looking at the card, this guy here on the card, I know him personally. When he came to Christ from a Sikh family in Punjab, his parents literally threw him out of the house. He came to a Bible college, finished his 3-year study, we sent him to the mission field, he planted so far 5 churches in that state. Can you imagine you are given the privilege to be the sponsor of that missionary? Or hundreds like this dear brother. What I'm asking you to do, would you please help us? We have literally hundreds of missionaries who are ready to go to the mission field, but we need someone to pray for them and help them. You say, Brother KP, what does that mean? My wife and I, we began help 4 missionaries giving $30 a month. And each one of these missionaries, God used them to establish churches on the mission field. And you can do the same. All you need to do is to fill this card, your name and address, and see how many missionaries you like to support. We have a medical doctor who helps 50 missionaries a month. He has more money than I have. And the Lord bless him for that. And at least 1 or 2 or 3, whatever you can help, please do that. All you need to just sign this up, and if you want to make the payments through credit card and all that, on the back here, the information. And you know what we're going to do? When you bring the card to the table, we are going to give you your missionary or missionaries take home with you today. Start praying for them. Name and information, testimony. They write you a couple of times a year, and they become your family members for you to pray for them and see God's work done on the mission field. And every penny you send for that missionary actually go to the mission field, to the missionaries. We don't take nothing out of that. Our staff raise their own support, and we meet our needs like that. So, there are 4 things I pray that you consider. Prayer, evaluating our lifestyle, seeking the Lord's call on your life. But you can start today by saying, Lord, at least this I can do, and start helping some of these missionaries. Whatever the Lord asks you to do, He will give you the grace. All I need to say, Lord, give me the strength. And that is beautiful. May the Lord speak to us. Amen.